All right, Merry Christmas. I like the committed group here. As always, man, I'll quickly describe the last game, and really I thought we talked pretty succinctly about it after the game, man. It was a hotly contested game versus a good opponent in their venue. I thought our guys played hard. I thought we made some plays. I didn't think that we made enough plays, obviously, to win. And really it was in some areas that have been common areas for us. We acknowledge that. And part of us getting ourselves ready to play this week and doing what's required for us this week is acknowledging that. We got to do a better job of taking care of the ball. We talked about how New Orleans hunts the ball. We turned the ball over twice in the waning moments of that game in scoring territory, and it was significant. Obviously, we didn't get the necessary stop when we needed it late in the ball game. We had a couple of stop opportunities in the game, fourth down plays where seemingly we won the circumstance, but we didn't because of penalty. And so we got to accept responsibility for that and work to play a cleaner brand of ball in those moments. And then obviously the fake punt was unsuccessful. Like I mentioned after the game, I accept full responsibility for that. I thought it was a good place in the game to execute it. I felt good about the look. I felt good about the guy that was carrying it and Rosie Nix. We came up a half yard short. Even if we came up short, I felt good about us having an opportunity to stop them and or having an opportunity to get the ball back. You know, unfortunately, how the game unfolded, we weren't able to stop them. We got the ball back, but we were unsuccessful in our attempt to move the ball subsequently. And that's life, man. We're not going to play not to lose. We're going to play to win. The guys understand that. That's just how we live. On the injury front, Sean Davis has a quad. He's downstairs managing it right now. We'll see where that leads us in terms of his participation throughout the week and ultimately play. Vince Williams went down in the game with a toe. That's being evaluated. His availability is in question. Obviously, we'll watch him throughout the course of the week in terms of his practice participation. And same thing with James Conner. I thought his participation was on the upswing at the end of last week with his ankle. We'll be watching him close and seeing if he's able to be a positive contributor to our efforts this week. And obviously, his practice participation and effectiveness will be a major factor in that. Now, as we push forward towards Cincy, man, there are some things that are very familiar about Cincy. There are some things that are unfamiliar about Cincy. Obviously, it's the Bengals, man. The history shared with those guys. It's going to be a hotly contested game, a divisional game. We expect that. We expect a tough game. They've been running the ball extremely well. Joe Mixon has been central to that. I think when you're looking at trying to minimize the things that they're doing offensively, it starts with working to minimize him. And obviously, with Driscoll at quarterback, there's some changes there that you have to be aware of. And for us, it centers around his mobility and what his mobility does, not only to schematics and some of the play selection that they employ, misdirection passes and so forth, things that highlight his talents, but also the things that he's able to do in terms of extending plays and creating opportunities with his legs. Possession downs, for instance, the scramble ability of Driscoll on possession downs, you know, is a formidable thing you have to be prepared to deal with, things that, quite frankly, you don't deal a lot with when you're preparing to defend Andy Dalton. So there's some things schematically we better be prepared to address in terms of dealing with them offensively that's different, Driscoll over Dalton. And then, obviously, when they don't have A.J. Green, you know, some more things in terms of the distribution of the ball are in question. A.J. Green is a compass for them, but it's also a compass for those that compete against them in terms of the pecking order and how they distribute the ball, particularly in situations, third down, red zone. They're a tougher group to nail down when they minus some of those significant pieces like an A.J. Green. They're spreading the ball out more evenly. You got to play more straight up in some of those circumstances. So obviously they lose a little bit when they lose significant contributors, like some of the ones that I mentioned, but they gain some things in terms of the unforeseen and predictability also that we better be prepared to deal with, and specifically quarterback mobility being an element of that. On the defensive side of the ball, they've gone through some minor changes there. Of course, Coach Lewis is now calling it, and you see the impact of his involvement. Although it's subtle, the results of it can be significant. Seeing a lot more movement up front in terms of their line, in terms of stunning, in terms of clouding available gaps in the run game. I think that has really steadied the waters in terms of some of the run game things they've dealt with. It's the same cast of characters and the same structure in which they operate. You better be prepared to deal with the 4 men up front. Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap leading that group. The emergence of Sam Hubbard has been something worth mentioning. I think maybe even we even mentioned it last time we played him. He was just starting to emerge, and so you just mentioned that fact. But since then, with the IR status of Lawson and just the continued rise of him, he's somebody to contend with in sub packages. I think he's got 6 sacks on the season. Other young contributors are growing and developing. Jesse Bates has been in the lineup all year. You see the maturation process in him. He's a steady center fielder, one that I'm sure that they're excited about as they push forward into the future. And then their corners, man, led by William Jackson. They're a formidable bunch. They're combative. They play on the line of scrimmage. They specialize in bump and run. Bunch of first-rounders, whether it's him or Denard or 2-7. They really get after you. They like the matchup element of play, and they're good at it. So we got to work hard to create favorable matchups and get open and create space, particularly on the possession downs when man-to-man is very, very prevalent. In the special teams game, it's probably as significant as any element of play when you talk about familiarity and continuity. Their coordinator's been there for a number of years. The core components of their unit has been there for a number of years, like ours. And so we'll go in and do combat. Erickson, their return man, has been there now for a number of years. He had some significant returns against us in the last game. We got to work to steady those waters, and we got to find a return splash or two of our own. When you're talking about familiar opponents, when you're talking about a hotly contested game like this, I'd imagine special teams is going to be a significant component of play, and we got to gear ourselves toward that from a readiness standpoint, and we will. Questions?
When you see Juju come out and accept blame for the fumble the other day, what can a young player like that learn from a failure such as that?
You know, like you learn from successes. I think we're all products of experience. And that's why when I talk about the special teams unit, I talk about continuity and the knowledge and why that area of play is going to be so hotly contested. In Juju's case, man, he's a young guy that's a significant component of our attack, a guy that we depend on to deliver winning quality performance. I appreciate the fact that he's an accountability guy, that he accepts responsibility. I'm sure moving forward, he's going to have plenty of opportunities in his career to be the significant reason why we're successful. He's been that. It wasn't on Sunday. And so it's something to be learned individually and collectively from those things. And but again, not wishing it away, not pretending like it didn't happen, is a good component of utilizing it for good as he and we move forward.
Mike, the pass breakup that Sean had down inside the 20 in the first half that you guys recovered the football, was that a play that could be challenged? And were you told that you couldn't challenge it, or how did that?
I don't know whether legally they would have allowed me to challenge it or not based on, you know, the initial reading on the field, but you know, my bird's eye view, I thought it was banged out and it was an incomplete pass. They were definitive about it and we moved on.
If Sean and Vince can't go, what options will you look at?
You know, it's in-house. So, you know, we're going to look at those things, but right now we're not ready to paint with a broad brush and exclude those guys. We're going to leave the light on for them. I know that's their mentality. It was just expressed to me by Davis downstairs, and you like that. The guys better have a lean-in mentality this time of year, and those guys do.
Mike, you mentioned dealing with disappointment with Juju. What do you tell the team about entering this week, the situation you're in, and coming off that game in New Orleans?
You know, really, we just focus on the things that are within our control, and from that perspective, it's no different than any other week. We better handle business in our stadium. There are things going on in other stadiums that could affect us, but there are things going on in other stadiums every weekend that could affect our positioning. We better focus on the task at hand, the things that are within our control, and that's our preparation and play as we push into Heinz Field on Sunday. That will be the message.
Coach, a real difference in close games and the success last year versus this year specifically. I'm curious what you make of sort of faltering in a lot of these close games, especially losing the last 3 on the road, and especially given the success as a team that you've had on third downs and in the red zone. I mean, what do you make of the team's inability to close some of these games this year?
It's quite simply black and white. Is making a sufficient number of plays to do the job or to not. We're not going to make it to be something mystical. We're not going to pretend like it's something that's outside of our control. It is within our control. It's preparation, it's detail, it's play, it's planning, it's schematics, it's coaching, it's all of those things. And all of those things are very tangible. We're falling short for a variety and a myriad of reasons. But it's all within that discussion. And so we proceed with that understanding in mind, and understanding that it is within our control, and this week we have an opportunity to do something about the outcome of this game. We cannot waste one iota of our time worried about what's already transpired in 2018. That's no different than what's already transpired in 2017. It's history. We're focused on the days that lie ahead and how we can positively affect them for us.
Mike, the NFL reviewed whether that pass was tipped on the final pass interference to Joe. Would you like to see a mechanism in place for coaches to have more of a say-so on what goes on after the 2-minute warning? And the second part of that question is after—
No, I wouldn't.
You would not?
I think we got enough components in place there to get things right within a 2-minute. What's the second part?
After looking at the tape, do you believe that ball was tipped?
I don't.
Anyone else?
But I also don't believe it was a DPI.
Do you think those should be reviewable going forward?
You know, I got a firm position on that, man. I don't. I just worry about the entertainment component of it, and what that might do for fans and the viewership, what that looks like. But given some of the things that have happened, you know, I'm sure it'll be up for debate, as it always is and has been in recent years, because technology and the amount of coverage that our game at this level gets, not only on Sundays but 7 days a week, allots for that type of scrutiny and review. It's just part of our business today. And so I think we all understand that. I think we're all ready to have that debate every year. I don't think we're ever moving away from that debate. The utilization of technology and information in different components of the game, whether it's play, strategy, officiating, or otherwise.
Mike, how do you deal with the frustration of missed calls? Like if the words are back.
How do you deal with it when your kids don't listen? How do you deal with? You move on. You know, you got to focus on the things that are within your control and the things ahead that are within your control, because, you know, you're going to miss an opportunity when you don't. And so I choose to operate the way I want our team to operate. There are going to be plays that happen in a game, positively and negatively, for a variety of reasons, whether it's performance related or officiating related or anything related. The bottom line is when they're done, they're done. You got to move on, because most of the time what truly defines you are the plays that lie ahead. And you can miss an opportunity crying over spilt milk. That's not our style. That's not my style, and it won't be.
Anyone else?
What worked so well offensively in the third quarter that sort of stopped in the fourth quarter last year? I mean, the passing off.
Last year?
This past week in New Orleans.
We turned the ball over. I don't know that we stopped. I don't know that we were stopped. We turned the ball over, like I mentioned at the opening.